To our main news this evening on The Late Show Live. I think there's something seriously wrong with the mechanics of the British state, and I'm not sure tonight whether there's any way back from it. Bear with me in this first segment because it will be lengthy, but I think it's very important indeed. Last week, 5 Palestine Action protesters walked free from court after being found not guilty of breaking into an Israeli defence firm in Bristol and assaulting a police officer. Well, that was that, but today, elsewhere, the government lost a High Court ruling that said it acted unlawfully when prescribing Palestine Action as a terrorist organisation, a move literally voted on in Parliament by our own elected politicians.
Judges ruling this morning that indeed it is an infringement on Palestine Action supporters' free speech to prescribe them as a terror organisation, putting them on a level playing field with, for example, supporters of ISIS.
And let's just remind ourselves as well, remember, the government prescribed Palestine Action after the group was accused of breaking into RAF Bryce Norton and causing millions of pounds worth of damage to military aircraft. The case is due to be heard at trial in January 2027, and they deny the charges. But now, and I think I'm the first to tell you this on television tonight, separately over the past few days, it appears we've seen the Islamist regime in Iran welcome a host of social media influencers and even the BBC for what is, in my opinion, a propaganda holiday to tell us how amazing life is there after the protests, and everybody apparently loves the Ayatollah. The same Iranian government that funds the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the same Iranian Islamic nutjobs who send terrorist sleeper cells to Western capitals, including London, and the same Iranian regime that just slaughtered 30,000 civilians under the cover of an internet blackout. Despite that, this is British former apprentice contestant and Palestine fanatic Bushra Sheikh in Tehran yesterday.
What's amazing, guys, is I have walked this entire rally in the middle of Iran without a hijab on. And I know what loads of you are thinking. You're thinking, how is she in the middle of Tehran at that square without her scarf on? Nothing has happened to me. Nobody has abused me. Nobody has said anything. In fact, when you are a visitor in Iran, they treat you so well, even me, without a hijab. But it's the fact that I have come here, I have been welcomed, and nobody has said a single thing to me about my hair being uncovered.
Yeah, very good. So what's going on there? What is Bushra doing there? Because it was only 3 years ago that Mahsa Amini, she's a 22-year-old Iranian woman, was reportedly beaten to death by the government's morality police for refusing to wear a hijab. So while Bushra talks about being able to walk freely without a hijab, why did she then don one later on for an appearance on the state-sponsored Press TV?
A lot of the media that we receive in the West is predominantly propagandized. It's not a reality on the ground of what's happening in Iran. I say bring me another country in the world that has suffered the sanctions that Iran has for more than 40 years and still being able to be patriotic, supporting their government. I mean, that itself speaks volumes, really.
So, Bushra, are you free to ditch the hijab or not? And for the record, Press TV, the outfit she was appearing on there in Iran, it was sanctioned in the UK because of concerns that its UK entity wasn't in control of its TV output, and rather it was being controlled from Tehran. Bushra is also a fine one to talk about being propagandised as well. She's literally been invited there, I assume, by the Iranian regime to pump out regime talking points. This is her banging on about a strong independent Iran refusing to kneel to imperialist powers and how UK sanctions on Iran are wrong.
We are at the point where the USA and Iran are having negotiations about Iran's ballistic missile program. This has always been about power and military might that nations have in a geopolitical sense and a geographical sense. It's about hegemony in the region. The USA doesn't want Iran to have a powerful program, something that they build in Iran on their own land for themselves. This isn't a question about which domain has more power. It's about accountability, it's about equality, and it's taking away hypocrisy and double standards. But the question is, what is Iran going to do? Are they going to stand their ground and they're going to say this is our program, or is the US going to say if you don't do as we say, then you're going to face consequences? But one thing I can tell you, with many people that I've spoken to, Iran has spoken and Iran is ready.
So again, I'm asking, who sent Bushra there? Is she being paid either in cash or accommodation? Because this tweet from journalist Emily Schrader has sparked some interest in the last hours or so. It reads, under the UK's Iran Sanctions Regulations 2023, UK nationals are bound by sanctions law wherever they are in the world. They are prohibited from dealing with the funds or economic resources of a designated person or from receiving economic resources from a designated entity. Now, it's worth stating that GBNews cannot independently verify whether Bushra has been paid or received those types of benefits during her stay, which would include, as I said, hotels or accommodation. But it does raise serious questions. The sad reality, though, is that it wasn't just Bushra invited on what appears to be a propaganda tour of Iran. This is the co-founder of Palestine Action US, who filmed herself in Iran on that very same trip, celebrating the recent court victory news of Palestine Action UK.
I feel incredibly inspired and optimistic by the millions of Iranians who are out in the streets today defending their government, despite the lies we hear in the West that the people are against the Islamic Republic. We see it actually has mass popular support. People support the resistance against U.S. imperialism.
And surprise, surprise, the BBC were also there as well.
Public holiday today, and here in Tehran it feels like a family festival.
Well, as a Belgian MP commented earlier today, they wrote, disgusting on X. They shut down the internet and slaughtered us, and now they invite the Ayatollah's BBC to label 47 years of occupation a family festival. I do wonder tonight what BBC Persian journalists think of that report from Tehran, because reporters at BBC Persia were told only last week how they've been warned their movements are being closely monitored by the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, designated as terrorists here in the United States. As they said, their families in Iran were being interrogated and persecuted for their reporting. I do wonder. But back home in Britain, Sky News were down in Brighton filming a bunch of Palestine cranks going door to door, asking locals to boycott Israeli products.
They split into small groups and head off to nearby streets.
We're trying to get people to get as many people as possible to sign up.
Oh, so I can't eat hummus?
Well, you can eat hummus, but just not Israeli hummus.
The group says its aim is to put economic pressure on Israel.
This is a local campaign in Brighton to boycott, divest and sanction against Israel because of the treatment of Palestinians.
Sounds a bit weird, doesn't it, going door to door or talking about Jews and asking people to boycott Israeli products? Well, Brighton woman Heidi Bachmann, whose husband's relatives were kidnapped and murdered by Hamas, she posted on X in response to that clip, in my tolerant city of Brighton, anti-Zionists are going door to door to push people to boycott Israeli products. She added that to her, it felt like they were marking down who wasn't interested and making lists of bad Jews. This is really scary. Well, look, tonight it's time to face the reality that the enemy is at our door. They walk our streets. They're in our country, whether directly or indirectly as useful idiots like Bushra Sheikh. Some of them, like Bushra, are British citizens who hate their country and hate the West. I'm not sure if this self-loathing and treachery is reversible. Can it be salvaged? I don't know, but it's time we confronted the problem face on.
Are you looking to get into shape in 2026? If so, then you need the right soundtrack and the right earbuds to match. This video is sponsored by Raycon and their essential open earbuds. Well, unlike regular earbuds, these ones here sit just outside your ear canal, giving you clear sound. You can still hear what's happening in the world around you. Trust me, they're super light, secure and comfortable with no slipping or soreness thanks to the multi-angular hook and multi-point connection. And with 8 hours of playtime and 36 more with the charging case, it means I only need to charge them once a week. Switching between devices is instant and I can go from my phone to my laptop without missing a beat. Raycon has over 3 million customers worldwide. Their sound quality is right up there with premium brands, but at a fraction of the price. Plus, there's a 30-day happiness guarantee. The essential open earbuds are here to help you crush your New Year's resolutions. Head to buyraycon.com/GBNews open for 15% off site-wide.
Well, I think the BBC is one thing, and you know, I actually do largely admire Lise Doucette's reporting. She's a proper reporter and a professional, unlike one Bushra Sheikh who found fame on reality TV show The Apprentice a couple of years ago, and since then has been on somewhat of a journey, as they might say. Started off as a wannabe businesswoman, and now she seems to be just mouthing off a lot on social media. She's made incendiary remarks over the years, most notably after October 7th. She said that Palestinians have achieved more in 5 minutes than Zelensky has with 75 billion. So it just goes to show you where she stands on the spectrum, really, what her views are.
Who invited her to Iran, do you think?
Well, it's clear from the way she's been filming, the way she's been behaving, the fact that she can openly film herself without the mandatory hijab. She must be invited there by the regime. I can't think of any other explanation. Because if you look at the video and the women behind her, they're all covered up. They're all fully covered up. I don't see any of them walking around without a hijab. And as you pointed out earlier, she did go on the state broadcaster wearing a hijab as well. So, I think she's being very disingenuous, trying to claim she's free when she's actually not.
Yeah, indeed. I'd like to know who sent her, who, if anybody, is paying for her, and if she has even just received accommodation from the Islamist regime in Iran, because potentially, I'm not accusing her directly here of any crimes, but potentially there would be questions raised about breaking sanctions laws. We have asked Bushra to come on the show tonight and have a chat with me and give comment, but we haven't heard back. But hopefully we can do that in the next day or two if she responds. Iram, thank you very much. I really appreciate your company, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon. With me now is the journalist Emily Schrader, who I quoted just then at the top of the show. Emily, nice to see you. Your take on this, please. This seems to be a deliberate attempt by the Islamist regime to win some good PR in the West.
Oh, absolutely. And I think all of the evidence you provided about Bushra to begin with speaks to really who she is. This isn't someone that's new to the shilling for the Islamic regime or even extremist Islamist terrorist organizations like Hamas. It's something that she has a long history of doing. But I mean, the core of the problem here is that this isn't something new. We know from documents that I was looking at just earlier today that the Islamic Republic has reported in their own state media that they've set aside at least $20 million for influencer marketing campaigns geared at foreigners. That's how they themselves branded it. This was also repeated in social media, and this was referring to at least one trip that occurred in November 2024. So all the indications imply that the regime was the funder behind this. In one of those articles that I mentioned, the Tehran municipality actually claimed credit for the travel fees and the hotel fees for participants in this influencer delegation. Now, is this influencer delegation the same thing? We don't know yet. We don't have all those answers, but it definitely warrants an investigation, not just for the UK, but also for Kala Walsh in the United States, the Palestine Action US founder. This is someone who has been to Iran on an influencer trip before. On that trip, she was filmed chanting death to America and death to Israel from a stage after she visited an IRGC military center. Now, how can you be allowed to do such a thing, given that there are tons of sanctions from the United States, and you have a government paying for you to produce content, even if you're not paid in terms of getting a check? You have a government that's paying for you in kind to produce content. I mean, this is a huge, huge problem. And both the OFAC office in the United States and the OFSI need to investigate this in the UK when it comes to Bushra Sheikh, because this is totally unacceptable and it's dangerous, frankly. This is a very dangerous regime that has made their intent to destroy England as well as the United States and, of course, Israel very clear for 48 years and counting.
Yeah, Emily, we've got Iranian sleeper cells in the UK. The head of MI5, which is our domestic intelligence service, they came out a few months ago and said they foiled 20 Iranian-linked terror attacks in the UK. I know of more. I know details of more because I've got friends who work in counter-terror. They are literally everywhere. As you said, we can't verify if these people we've mentioned tonight are being paid by the state, but what a coincidence. They all turn up at the same time and say how great life is and that Iranians are happy with the Islamist regime. Emily, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Really appreciate it, and we'll catch up soon. Let's get the thoughts of one more guest, Iranian dissident journalist Niag Ghorbrani. Niag, Your take, please, on this tonight. Should the West, should Britain and even the United States be concerned about what's going on here with seemingly influencers being paid, maybe not necessarily Bushra, but as Emily just highlighted there, previously in the past, influencers being paid to go to Iran and pump out propaganda?
Hi, Ben. Thank you for having me. Actually, you see clearly she is in base of IRGC. Actually, missile is behind her. How she's allowed to be there? This is serious question. How when she's not invited by government, how she went there and openly supporting Islamic Republic and in favor, actually she talking in favor of Islamic Republic. Is she actually going to the Iranian family who lost their lives during this actually last month? Actually less than 40 days we have more than 80,000 people get killed. We have women in Iran when they doesn't cover their hair, they get shot dead. How she going, without hijab? And you have to compare when she was in street without hijab, and when we went to she went to the military actually base, she covering, she had a hijab. When it's
because I think the base, as you mentioned, it was an IRGC missile unit. That's why she had to cover up there, at least. So, yeah, look, I don't want to focus just on Bushra, but for me, she is a prime example of the useful idiots we have in the UK. She's a British citizen. She's British born. She's a Pakistani Brit, but she hates Britain. And my point tonight is people like her hate our country. They hate the West. She was tweeting about October the 7th, pretty much in praise of it after October the 7th. She tweeted 2 years ago, how should I integrate in the UK when Britain has no culture? What culture am I integrating into? She literally hates our country, although she is a British product. So that's my wider point tonight.
Exactly.
Just last question to you.
She's happy, let her stay in Islamic Republic. Let her stay there. When she's happy, send her, one way. Actually, give her one-way ticket. Send her to Tehran. Live with the Ayatollahs. Why she want to come back?
Yeah, well, I'll ask her next time. Next time I speak to her on the show, which will hopefully be soon. We've invited her on. If she comes on tomorrow night, which I hope she will, I'll ask her that very question. Niak, thank you very much. Great to see you. Niak Gobani, Iranian dissident and journalist. In a statement to GBNews, a BBC spokesperson has said the situation in Iran is of clear and urgent public interest. BBC News reports from some of the most challenging areas of the world for journalists in the interest of its audiences. Since 2009, BBC News has not been allowed to have any correspondent based in Tehran. BBC News has managed on some occasions to send correspondents to Iran, and when this is the case, we are clear in our reporting that the Iranian authorities prohibit any material produced by BBC News or any other international news organisation allowed official access to Iran to be shared with or run on BBC News Persian. The report from last night has included interviews with ordinary Iranians who, contrary to your suggestion, have been open about their views on the actions of the government. Separately, BBC News Persian reaches over 19 million people in Iran every week with independent and impartial views. And GBNews, as I said, also contacted Bushra Sheikh ahead of this programme tonight to offer her the opportunity to respond to our coverage. I am yet to receive a response from her, but in social media posts, she's denied being paid by the regime.